This edition of 5P with Lamondre is being presented by Rue Global Impact. Rue Global Impact is a multifaceted disability inclusion firm that helps to amplify your disability inclusion efforts and establish you as a leader of inclusion in your industry. So if you want to get in contact with us, simply reach out to us on our website, ruhglobal.com, ruhglobal.com. Today, we're going to be focusing on Sustainable Development Goal number 5, to achieve gender equality and to empower all women and girls. Let's get it.
Welcome to 5P with Lamondre, the podcast that's all about the 5 Ps: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. If you're looking to be encouraged, inspired, and challenged, then this is the podcast for you. Here's your host, Lamondre.
Oh, welcome to 5P with Lamondre. I am your host, Lamondre Pugh, and I've got an incredibly important show for you today. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to establish something new. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your comments. I want to know what's on your mind. So what I've done is I've established a voicemail line for you, and you can participate in the show by simply giving us a call at 803-470-2830. That's 803-470-2830. And when you leave your voicemail message, you just may hear yourself on the show in a future episode. So give us a call at 803-470-2830. I want to hear from you. As I said earlier, today's show is an extremely important topic. The theme for this particular episode is goal number 5, and that's to achieve gender equality and to empower all women and girls. And today, my guest is the executive consultant with an organization called Rediscover Me, and their aim is to engage, educate, and inspire change within women. And my guest today is Jaunita McDonald. Jaunita, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Lamondre. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. Now, as I said, goal number 5 is really about empowering all women and girls, and your organization is just that, about the empowerment of women. Tell me what Rediscover Me is all about.
Just what you said, our biggest aim is to inspire women to rediscover the me that she wants to be. And we stand on the 3 pillars of lost identity plus lost self-esteem equals lost purpose and direction.
Wow, what an equation. Say that again.
Lost identity plus lost self-esteem equals lost purpose and direction.
Now, how did you develop that?
I started out doing an internship with a local organization that focused on domestic violence and sexual assault. And so the more that I work with women in this area of identity, I started to discover that you can't look at a person and help a person on identity if you don't deal with all the other issues that are embedded that you don't see.
Right. So now, help me understand in more depth and more detail what the problems really are. I mean, because we hear about so many things that happen around the globe, like the whole issue with genital mutilation. We've seen issues of trafficking, especially in the States. We see issues of sex trafficking and all kinds of things. What is it that you see in the work that you do that really stands out as an issue, particularly here in South Carolina?
Here in South Carolina is having the courage to open up about issues that we are having as a woman, no matter if it's depression, if we have been affected in some way by domestic violence or sexual assault, if we are, suffering from just emotional exhaustion, something as minor as that. Women have a tendency of internalizing issues.
Right.
And so once we internalize those issues, we feel like there is no hope.
Right.
There is no help. There's no support. And then when we do get the courage to ask for help, sometimes we are redirected to someone else. So therefore, the ball gets dropped somewhere.
Right. So how do you pick up that ball? How do you make certain that the balls are not dropped? How do you help someone find that courage? Because as you said, a lot of times there's a stigma attached to it. A lot of times there are issues that really have to be addressed, but people don't know exactly how to do that. So how is it that you can come in and help with that?
The difference with Rediscover Me compared to other organizations is we focus on the mental elevation of an individual.
Mental elevation.
That's what the ME stand for, mental elevation.
Okay.
So we take a more psychological approach of helping our sisters connect with how we think, how we separate ourselves, and I guess you can say the wave frequencies of our mind and how we, our thought process, how we process information, how we, all of that. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you are actually helping that person to change from the inside out instead of, passing them here and there,
right,
or putting a Band-Aid over a situation, so to speak.
Right. So more than just kind of saying, oh, okay, here's a social service, or here is this particular service that we can fix right now. You really help in the transformation of the way someone sees themselves and sees what their life can be.
Absolutely.
How do you do that? Tell me about it.
I can't give away all of it, but I'm going to tell you a little bit. How about that?
All right.
The biggest thing that we do, I love simulations.
Okay.
Because this is the thing that I looked at when I first began. In this area, you have to go to so many conferences. You have to go to all these speaking engagements, and so unless I have a phenomenal speaker such as yourself, Lamondre, I'm going to mentally disengage.
Right. Somewhere along the way, I'm gonna fall asleep on you. And so what I did is I built everything around me, and I was like, well, what if we could take a person and show them how their mind is going when they are faced with a decision? And that's what we do. We take them through a simulation, and it's that simulation, not just presenting a topic, but dynamically taking them through that form of simulation that helps them to see. So if you come and you tell me, which we get all the time, especially in African American culture, is that I'm a strong Black woman. See, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to tell me, how are you a strong Black woman? Why are you a strong Black woman? Right.
And then I'm going to break you down until you can show me, what does that look like?
Right. So now, why do you do that? Why would you challenge that? Because what we hear is, well, that's a very positive thing. That's an amazingly positive thing. And on the surface, we believe we understand what that means. So why do you dig to challenge that? And is it a misnomer to say I'm a strong person?
If it's a mask.
If it's a mask. Explain the mask.
We wear so many masks. Every day we start out, I am wonderful. I'm doing well.
Mm-hmm.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Right. The affirmations.
But I go back in my room and I'm about to die. I can't take it anymore. I don't know how I'm going to provide for my family. I don't know how I'm going to get a job. I don't even know why am I here in this world? What is my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
These are these internal voices that are on the inside of our head that are beating us up. But then when we come out that door, the hair is together, the makeup is intact, we are dressed really beautifully, and then we come in and we give our prepared 10-second speech. And It is that 10-second speech that we have rehearsed over and over whenever we're being hit. But I'm okay.
So it's like we come out into the world ready for the world, but we're not ready for the life that we actually live.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And it seems to me that women in particular have that.
Yes.
That it's hard to be who you really are in this society without some level of ridicule, without some level of of judgment that comes with that. I often think about, just because I know part of what you deal with is also professional development as well as personal issues in Rediscover Me. But, I think about it when you have a man in a professional role who's somewhat gruff, and many times it's just straight rule, oh, he's tough, he's strong, he's this,
right?
But if that woman exhibits those same characteristics, they're temperamental.
Yes.
They're the B word.
Yes, absolutely.
They're all of those things that have negative connotations, but none of those things are considered strong.
Yes.
Those things are considered negative character traits, is what it is. And so this facade that people feel like they have to put on then becomes a reality. That I have to be this strong person. I have to be this person who doesn't complain. I have to be this person who can do it all without any failure. And the truth is, no one can. That's an impossible standard to live up to.
But the crazy part about it, though, Lamondre, is that society expects us to.
Yeah.
And not just society, it occurs even in our own families.
Right.
So basically, when you look at that woman, that individual has already, before she became an adult, has given away her identity. You see what I'm saying? So she's given away her natural, authentic self. She's not allowed to go out and play football with her brothers. She's not allowed to build, on the cars. And, even myself, I've always asked the question, what made me, what put me on the level where I can do the things that I do, but others that I'm surrounded with can't. And,
right.
and I've looked and I've asked, but one thing I noticed is that I grew up as an oldest grandchild of 6 uncles. I was out there building.
You were with the fellas.
I was with the fellas. I was playing football and doing all the crazy stuff, climbing trees and things. And so it's like a form of unleashing. And so, but for those that haven't, you're not saying that doing that made me, having that extra strength, because I didn't really grow up in the most kosher situation. But what I'll say is that there was something about that push or that touch that allowed me to do a little bit more things and more, have this voice that I have. And be secure in using it. Okay.
And I want to get back to your personal situation in a moment, but you said something, or in reading some of your materials, you wrote about how you deal with identity and intersectional trauma. Now, explain those two areas. Let's start with identity, first of all.
Identity is the very first one that we discussed, the degree that a woman put on a mask and not walk in her true, authentic self. That true authentic self is defined based on how you carry yourself, what you love, your voice position. I am very, very big on voice position and knowing who you are.
Voice position, explain that.
Voice position, I actually began learning more about voice position from my my instructor, Dr. Katrina, she got married. I know Spigner Hutchins. There we go.
Okay.
Dr. Katrina Hutchins. Dr. Hutchins actually wrote a book called The 7 Voice Positions. Okay. And I had already been looking at the degree that an individual, when she is empowered through the rhythm of her voice, how it would actually magnify and help her in regaining part of her power after trauma. And so when I started learning more up under her about the difference of our voice, the rhythmic of our voice, and how to use it, then I really tapped more into when a person, such as intersectional trauma, and so before I go into that, let me give you the definition of it.
Please do.
Yeah, intersectional trauma is something that I coined, but from a psychological perspective, intersectional is causal, C-A-U-S-A-L. Causal is the different forms of trauma. So if an individual was raped, she could entail additional trauma, such as she may take on smoking, she may take on an eating disorder, and build and build and build. So whenever something is happening to her, she don't quite know which level or which causal issue created it until she actually do all of the work that is necessary to buy all the way down to the very first problem that happened. So it's intersectional. Things are crossing over one another.
Okay.
And so when that identity is, when you haven't really tapped into the authenticity of the identity, then you're hit with a form of trauma. Then that individual really has to go back and define that unique self. And that really takes a lot of backwards work. And so when we do that, through all the simulations, through conversations, through dynamic exercises that they have to go through, we have been able to help individuals to pinpoint that true issue and then begin to develop from that. And the very first thing is identifying it, being able to talk about it, and then taking your power back from it. And so in the midst of all of that, taking that power back, we are helping them to use their voice, to find the rhythm of their voice, not the strong, demanding power, because I have a position and that puts me in the perspective of a male. You took my voice, so I'm going to take my voice back, so I'm going to elevate it. Or that somber, I can't, I'm going to hover and I'm afraid all the time. No, what isn't, we're going to tap in. What's really on your mind? What do you really want to say? We're going to teach you how to say it and to deliver it in a manner that, number one, it doesn't take you outside of the character that you truly are. Okay. But to deliver it in a powerful manner that you are heard, you are understood, and you are received.
Right. So, intersectional trauma to me sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the compounding of this led to this, to this led to this, and this led to this. So what you find yourself is with exponential traumas that are simply piled on top of each other because we really have not dealt with, or we have not found the solution or healed from the original trauma or abuse that took place.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And you also have to, and I have to throw another one in here, you also have to think about the generational. And sometimes that generational will occur while you're in the womb. And there was a massive study that was done on that.
Explain that.
The massive study was done through Holocaust victims. Kristen, and I can't remember her last name, but she actually did a study on Holocaust victims that were pregnant. And so when she did that study, she defined individuals that were born that had fears. And when she worked with those individuals, all of those fears equated back to when their mothers were confined during that time.
Wow.
So you really have to, we really have to stop and really dissect ourselves. And even Adler showed that by the time each of us reach adulthood, we are all suffering from some form of depression. So if we are already suffering from some form of issue, guess what? We already have lost our identity before we ever got started. So therefore, there is already an issue. So it's something that we have to really start.
That's an amazing
addressing.
study, because what you're literally saying is, even though the individual may not have consciously suffered that particular trauma or that particular instance, they were born with a fear because of what was going on while they were in utero.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. And I've always believed that was possible. I have thought about in times that there are simply some things that are inbred in our genetic history that informs our present, that informs our consciousness, that does indeed relate to our fears, relates to our proclivities even, and the things that we like, the things that we don't like, those urges that we have, those instincts, whether it's fight or flight.
Absolutely.
I personally, and this is something that's personal to me, I have this fear about my face being covered. And, people say, oh, you're claustrophobic and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I am that, but I have no idea where that fear comes from. I have no idea where that generates. And really, it's only if I can't get cool air to my nose. that's a problem for me. I mean, and it's a major problem. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out. I've never had an experience in my conscious life where that was an issue, but it's a gripping kind of thing that goes beyond, he's just, it goes far beyond
Absolutely.
that.
And I'll throw another one out there for you. Even when you think about the individuals that say, I'm shy, we use that word very, very loosely. I'm shy.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll be amazed that something put you there.
Right.
Something happened that caused you to lose your voice. Right. Now, it could have been internalized from something passed down to you, or that shyness could be, I just don't know how to communicate.
Right.
But it's never a factor of shyness. Think about all that's going through your mind. And there's a lot that wants to come out. It's just that we don't know how to deliver it.
Now, certainly you're not saying that some people are just predisposed to not necessarily be extroverts now. But you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing you're talking about is that gripping kind of thing. And it's just like, I'm afraid I can't move forward in this. Is that what we're doing? Because, I mean, some people are just, I don't want to be out there like that.
I can see that, but I also will challenge that.
Okay.
I will challenge that. And I'm taking that from the individuals that I've worked with, because before I ever got to this point, I began back, and if you don't mind me throwing this in, go ahead. I began back in 2016 while I was in college.
Okay.
And like I say, everything started building as I worked with, doing my internship with this particular organization. And so as I built and worked and did studies with individuals that allowed me to come in and talk with them and test out my theories, over and over and over, the ones that would tell me they were shy, by the time I finished my 5 to 8 week training, they were sending me emails, breaking things down. They started speaking up and being the first one to appear in class. And I'm going in myself, I'm observing going, okay, I thought she was shy. It's not, but it's somebody giving you permission and then taking the time to teach you how to express yourself, how to speak up. Even an introvert who, yes, we have our moments where we want to just have our space. We want to have and I'm not saying that you're not necessarily an introvert. I'm just saying that there is a degree.
Right.
There is a degree.
Right.
That that individual needs to look a little bit further.
Right. And I think that was the delineation in between that, because, I'm a firm believer that knowledge is power. And once you have worked with an individual and you've opened the door and you've created a safe place for them to share, and you've armed them with some knowledge, okay, I feel like, I know what I'm talking about now. I can kind of put this out there. Yes. And that is certainly empowering. Now, as I mentioned to you, and I hope you don't mind going into this, but you said, you grew up in a situation that wasn't always so kosher. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that a little bit. Explain what you meant by that.
I grew up with an alcoholic mom. And so just to better clarify the degree of what I shared about Kristen in that study of generational curse, or what we as African Americans would say generational curse, or that generational trauma that an individual can grow into. I always tell people with my mom, she was such a loving and giving person. She did, she was just that Kool-Aid mom in the community. Right. But my mother died in 2000 with lung cancer, alcoholic disease. Alcoholism runs very strong in my family. I don't drink. Not because of my family. I did try it, but I didn't like it. But what I didn't know growing up as a child that I know now through all of these studies is what my mother had been trying to tell me as a child that I didn't listen to. And that was, she kept telling me all the years of her growing up, how alcohol would be given to them as children. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
All the years that they did certain things, which were like rituals, and not realizing that you're injecting your issues onto your children. And so it took my mother being on her deathbed that forced me to have to stop and listen to her. And so in the midst of listening to her, she started repeating the same thing. We would go from house to house, and they would put the liquor in the baby bottle, homemade, all of those things. And so it was like, okay. So now because of what was inflicted on you, you solve your problems through alcoholism because that's what you've seen and you grew up with.
Right.
And not getting to the heart of the problem in order to fix the problem. Nobody to say, okay, as a young woman, because we as women and men do not come into this world with a framework on how we're supposed to live. We define that based on those who we are given to raise us.
Right.
And so once we look at that, then we begin to emulate that, or we redefine to a certain degree. But some of those things, if we have not addressed those underlying problems, then we're going to still carry those issues with us. And so that's what my mom did. And so this is what she died from lung cancer in 2000. But it took me hearing her finally for the first time to understand she didn't just started doing this. It was taught to her. Yeah. It was a learned behavior. And she might have already had the taste of it in her. I don't know. I don't remember, my grandmother saying anything about she drank when she was, carrying her. But, this is that intersectional thing, those things that keep going on and bigger issues. And so she also was an abused woman. And she, and I think there's no thinking it. This is why I fight so much, because now that I have learned what she went through and how it took a wonderful person, and I as her daughter couldn't even help her because I didn't know.
Right.
This is my biggest fight, to help women and young girls to go ahead and let's deal with this problem. Let's talk about it.
Right.
In a safe place.
So now we understand that that's definitely something that seemed to have been a generational thing. But one of the things that I hear in that is that she did not pass that piece of it on to you. She didn't put the alcohol in your bottle. She didn't do those things to you, which, wonderful that didn't happen. How did her alcoholism and her being an abused person, how did that impact your life as a child?
I made a lot of mistakes, Lamondre. I made a lot of mistakes. And as I shared with you earlier in coming in, for some reason, I don't know why I didn't. But I do believe because I was around my uncle so much, and because I did the things that most women didn't get a chance to do in my neighborhood, it was something about them giving me fighting with them and wrestling with them gave me power to understand, guess what? You're not going to mess with me.
Right.
It gave me some form of strength. I don't know what that is.
Right.
But I just remember one time my mother and I were having a big argument, and it pertained to being an adult and how a woman's supposed to carry herself. And basically it was the stigmas that we're talking about that we're supposed to keep doing over and over. And I kept telling her, I won't be you. I didn't, and today when I make that statement, I don't mean that I don't want to be my mother, because I think you would have to know her for me to understand why I'm making this statement. But I had a wonderful mom. Through all of her brokenness, the one thing that she did was she made certain that we understood this biggest thing as a family, and that was unity and love. Unity and love. Outside of all of that ugly craziness, she kept unity and love.
Wow.
You see? And so the issues doesn't cloud the beauty.
Right.
It really doesn't. And so for me, it doesn't.
Right.
And so, and nor my brothers and sisters, I'm glad to say. So I need to throw that part out there. But, cause we love this woman like crazy. But we also see her, truly see her. Cause see, I can look at you and I can see you every day, but I don't really know you.
Right.
And so all of my life, I grew up with my mother. I looked at her, but I never knew her. And so it took her being on her deathbed for me to really look at her and then to begin to understand her and learn her and the why. And see, for us, we don't ever ask the why.
Right. And that's an important question.
It's a powerful question.
That's a very important question. And honestly, I think you just gave a very beautiful statement on how we all have issues. We all have things that we have to overcome. We all have obstacles. And some of those things are traumatic. Some of those things are Ooh. But here's the thing. There's always the vision. There's always seeing beyond that. Now, I'm not saying that you all, that people who have suffered certain traumas, that they have to go back and look at their perpetrator as, oh, but this was beautiful about the person. Please don't ever think I'm saying that. But what I am saying, you still must see the beauty in your life. You must see the beauty in your situation, because in some way, shape, or form, the fact that you're here, the fact that you survived it, the fact that you're breathing says, you know what? I've got a chance. I have value. I have something that I can bring to the table. Finding out what it is and realizing the value that we all bring to the table. And I believe that that is one of the hallmarks of what you do as with your organization and Rediscover Me. And one of the things that I love about the work that you do is you're very consistent. You're very consistent in your message. You're very consistent even in your social media presence. Now, what was it that made you want to get into this work and do it the way that you're doing it?
I didn't, Lamont.
You didn't?
I did not. I got, I love telling the story, but it is so funny. This mission, it actually found me.
Okay.
I ran from it. I really did. By happenstance, my story is really crazy. In 2000, mortgage crash.
2008, right around that time.
Right around that time, I lost everything. Trying to give you the condensed version of it. But I lost everything, had to move in with my daughters, wound up having to go to Virginia. I had a daughter that was having back surgery. She had already had a couple, and this one was going to keep her down. And so while I was there, I was like, okay, I need to get a job. I need to do something. Couldn't get a job, Lamont. Nowhere. And so I was really desperate. So I went to this lady. She actually asked me to help her in her shoe store for the Easter holiday. And so, and I told her, I said, I've been trying to get a job, but I can't. And so, and I said, when you communicate with HR, could you ask them to kind of look at my background, see what's creating a problem? And kind of find out it was my GED. And so I received my GED in my hometown. The school it went out of business, was not accredited. Everything that was done, null and void back then. We went to college, all of that null and void. And so it hit me like a ton of bricks. So basically it forced me back on a journey to going back to school. And I really didn't want to do that, but I really felt like a liar because I served on so many committees and did so many different things. And so I finally got the courage to talk to my children about it, and they were like, okay, go back to school. And I was like, and it's like, you're at home, you're not doing it, go back to school. So needless to say, they registered me for school, and I didn't do it. I told you I ran from it. And so they registered me for school, got my books and all my school supply, took me to school and dropped me off. My children took me to school and dropped me off. Gave me my lunch money.
That is fantastic. I love that.
And so as you know, when you're going in, I did get my GED, went to college, went on from there, and passed that GED with flying colors, I must say. But
probably passed it with flying colors the first time.
And so when I got back in school and was telling my story, telling all of the things and writing papers and things, and so several students that I was connected to kept coming up to me, ladies. They would catch me in the hallway and they'd ask me questions, and they'd catch me in the bathrooms and asking me questions. And they were like, well, I heard so-and-so say, and I'm like, where do these women keep coming from? And I was praying like, Lord, why these women keep coming to me, asking me, because I am not an expert. I don't know. And amazingly, they wouldn't stop, and then one time I was like, okay, I'm not helping this person. I'm not helping nobody else. I'm going to tell them they got to get some professional help. And so a group of ladies just cornered me. They're like, look, you need to help. We know, what you shared with so-and-so, it helped them. And so basically I was like, okay, Lord, if I have to do this, I need to educate myself. I need to understand. And amazingly, through my journey of college, I wound up taking a human behavior class and psychology class and just loved it. And it really honed in on all of this, and it all began to make sense. Mm-hmm. And so for me, my lost identity and rediscovering what that identity was helped with me developing this. So basically, it took me losing everything and then going back and redefining it. But then I realized in the midst of all of that, I have the opportunity to make me whomever I want. And she this time she was going to be phenomenal, and she was going to have a voice with it. And that's where it all came from. Discovering the me that she can be. Yes. I absolutely love that. Fantastic story. Tell me, now, especially because our goal, especially with this show, is I highlight people who are using their passions, who are using their skills to make the world a better place. And one of the things that we always want to do before we close out is give people some tools and some tips to help them transform their lives. So if you were talking to someone who was dealing either in an abusive relationship or dealing with some traumas or anything like that, because who knows who's listening right now and what they're dealing with. If you're listening to this right now and you're dealing with some trauma or you're dealing with some abuse or whatever it is, or even feelings of depression or anxiety, my friend Juanita is about to give you some tips that you can use to overcome that. Juanita. Thank you so much, Lamondre. The very first thing that popped in my mind as you were asking that question was, what make you brave? What's deep inside of you that makes you want to get up in the morning? And generally, when you're affected by any type of abuse, trauma, you're looking at the negative. This time I want to ask you to look at the positive. What is positive in your life? What will make you fight for you? When we look at fighting for ourselves, then we begin to understand why we are so important. You are the most important person that you know. And building that individual up, strengthening that individual, helping that individual become the very best person that she can be is your responsibility. I encourage you, wherever you are, to connect with an organization similar to mine or connect with any type of organization that your state or city offers that helps individual based on where you're at. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say, you know what, I'm depressed. Don't be afraid to say, I can't get it right. Because the only thing you will do is keep building a deeper hole that you're already in. So being brave to ask yourself the hard questions and being okay with the answers and knowing that you're not in this alone is the best advice that I can give you. Fantastic. Juanita, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, give me the information. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. We are located here in Columbia, South Carolina. Our mailing address is 7001 St. Andrews Road, PMB 413, and that zip code is 29212. Our local phone number is 803-310-3450. And our website is www.rediscoverme.org. Okay, now you also have a pretty strong social media presence. Yes. Give me your social media information. It is the same, Rediscover Me. There are two Rediscover Me's out there, but one of them is for when we're having private one-on-one, but there's one with a wisteria tree on it. That one is intentionally designed. That wisteria tree has a history all by itself as well that identifies the woman, but it's a wisteria tree, and we have a very large following that is nationwide. And the wisteria tree is yours? That is mine. Okay. That is mine. All right, I'm only interested in yours right now. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story and just being brave, and opening the doors for others. As I said, that's what 5P is all about. People who are using their passions to make the world a better place. And that is certainly something that you are doing. And
I really hope that this show has encouraged and inspired you as you listen to this, as you absorb the information that Jaunita has shared with you. Her story is amazing. I believe that the issues that she deals with are real issues, and they're issues that are pressing. We definitely want to create environments where people are engaged, where people are educated, where people are inspired to really be who and what they are. So I really appreciate Jaunita for sharing that. And please reach out to her at her social media, at her telephone number, at her address, on her website, however, wherever. Get in contact with her and discover who you really are. Or if you know someone who could benefit from being connected with Rediscover Me, please reach out to them and connect with them. And as I said, I still want to hear from you. So don't forget to check us out at our voicemail at 803-470-2830. That's 803-470-2830. Also, check us out on social media. That's 5P Podcast on Facebook, 5P Podcast on Twitter. And, of course, you can connect with me on social media, Lamondre_P at Twitter, Lamondre_P on Instagram, and Lamondre Pugh on Facebook. That's about all the time that I have for today. I am Lamondre Pugh, reminding you that today is the perfect day to begin being the change that you want to see. Live big, live full, live authentic. God bless.